Introduction to the protagonist. A young woman deeply in love, full of dreams about a perfect future with her partner. In the soft glow of a quiet morning, Alina sat by her window with a cup of warm tea, watching the sunlight stretch across the sky like a promise. Her heart fluttered with a sense of calm happiness that only love could bring. She was in her early 20s, a literature student with a mind full of poetry and a heart that beat with emotion. Life had not always been kind to her, but in the past 2 years, something had shifted. She had fallen in love. Her boyfriend, Ayan, was everything she had ever dreamed of. Gentle, thoughtful, and endlessly supportive, he had entered her life like a comforting chapter in a long, complicated book. They had met during a university workshop, both hesitant strangers with cautious smiles, but soon shared laughter, stolen glances, and long conversations under the stars brought them together. What began as a quiet friendship blossomed into a love so genuine that even her closest friends envied it. Alina believed in soulmates, and in Ayan, she found the kind of partner she had always imagined, someone who understood her silences and could read the sadness behind her smile. He respected her boundaries and admired her strength. They talked about the future often, sketching out dreams of a shared apartment, late-night coffee dates, traveling across Europe, and maybe, one day, a cozy home filled with books, art, and laughter. It all felt so real, so tangible. But what Alina cherished most about their bond was the emotional safety it offered. For the first time in her life, she felt she didn't need to pretend. Ayan saw her, not just for who she was, but also for who she could become. She felt empowered, deeply understood, and infinitely loved. Every moment they spent together, whether reading quietly in a park or cooking pasta on rainy evenings, felt like something sacred. And yet, beneath all the beauty, a small shadow lingered in the corners of her heart. A part of her past, unspoken, sealed away, remained untouched. She had promised herself she would share it someday, just not yet. After all, the present was so perfect. Why disturb it? But love, she believed, deserved honesty. Alina often wondered if revealing her secret would test the strength of what they had, or break it altogether. For now, she focused on the present, choosing to believe that their love was strong enough to overcome anything. She didn't know that one day, this very secret would threaten to ruin everything she had built with Ayan. For now, though, she let herself dream of wedding vows, shared sunsets, and a lifetime of holding hands. In her heart, love was a story still being written, and she was certain theirs would have a happy ending. The perfect relationship. She enjoys a beautiful bond with her boyfriend, marked by trust, understanding, and shared dreams. Alina often found herself amazed at how natural everything felt with Ayan. Their relationship wasn't loud or dramatic. It was peaceful, steady, and deeply rooted in mutual respect. In a world full of fleeting connections, theirs was something rare, something whole. It was the kind of love that made her believe in destiny. They had built a rhythm together, a quiet harmony that made even the simplest moments feel meaningful. Whether it was walking to class side by side, making late-night study snacks, or sending each other poetry over text, they shared a language of affection that didn't need grand declarations. Ayan remembered the small things, her favorite flower, the way she took her coffee, the fact that she liked silence more than noise when she was anxious. In return, Alina offered him a calm presence and deep emotional insight that made him feel truly seen. Their communication was open and honest. They could talk about anything: books, politics, family pressures, future ambitions, even fears they hadn't shared with anyone else. There was a sense of emotional safety that let them drop their masks. Ayan once told her that with her, he didn't have to pretend to be strong all the time, and that touched her in a way nothing else had. Together, they made plans, not just daydreams, but real ones. They discussed jobs, where they'd like to live, how many pets they might have, and whether they'd travel before settling down. Ayan wanted to be an architect. Alina dreamed of publishing a novel. They encouraged each other's ambitions with genuine pride. He'd listen to her read her writing aloud, giving feedback like a devoted editor, while she'd marvel at his sketches and the way he could bring lines and space to life. What stood out most about their bond was the trust they shared. There were no games, no need to test one another's loyalty. Alina never felt the insecurity that had haunted her past relationships. Ayan didn't need constant reassurance. He simply showed up, every day, in all the ways that mattered. They celebrated each other's wins, comforted each other through bad days, and forgave small mistakes, without letting them build into resentment. To the outside world, they seemed like the ideal couple, always balanced, always smiling. Their friends often said they were meant to be, and while Alina smiled at the compliments, deep down she believed it too. It wasn't about perfection, it was about effort, consistency, and love that didn't waver with time. Every night before sleeping, Alina would think about how lucky she was. Her life was far from flawless, but this love, this companionship, felt like a miracle. She had found someone who accepted her completely, but even in the warmth of their shared dreams, a whisper of doubt remained. The unspoken truth she kept locked away, fearing that revealing it could shatter this perfect world they had so lovingly built. A hidden past. She hides a painful or dark secret from her past, believing it won't affect her current life. Though Alina's present life was filled with peace and love, her past was a different story, one she had buried deep beneath her polished smiles and hopeful plans. It wasn't something she spoke about, not even in fragments. Even Ayan, with whom she shared so much of her soul, remained unaware of the storm she had once lived through. Before meeting Ayan, Alina's world had been shaped by a difficult chapter, one she had promised herself to forget. It wasn't a single event, but a stretch of time marked by pain, poor choices, and people who had left her more broken than whole. In her final year of high school, she had fallen into a relationship that started with charm and ended in quiet devastation. The boy, older and charismatic, had swept her into a romance that seemed thrilling at first but quickly turned toxic. Manipulation, control, and guilt disguised themselves as love, and by the time she realized it wasn't healthy, she was already emotionally worn down. When she finally escaped, she walked away with scars, emotional, not visible. She had made choices during that time that she regretted deeply, some out of fear, others out of desperation. She hadn't told anyone the full truth, not her family, not her closest friends. She feared judgment, pity, or worse, disbelief. University was her clean slate. She changed cities, changed the way she carried herself, and promised to never let her past define her future. It was there she met Ayan, a light after so much darkness. With him, she felt like she could start over, like she was finally becoming the person she had always wanted to be. And so, she decided to never bring up what had happened. It wasn't just about shame, it was about survival. Why risk this beautiful, healthy relationship by introducing shadows that no longer had a place in her life? What good would it do to dig up pain she had worked so hard to bury? Still, there were moments when the past tugged at her. Ayan would ask casually, "Have you ever been in love before?" And she'd smile, offering a vague answer. When he spoke of trust and honesty as foundations of their relationship, she felt a pinch in her heart. But she always silenced the voice that urged her to speak. "It doesn't matter anymore," she told herself. "That girl isn't me now. Ayan loves who I am today, not who I used to be." She convinced herself that the secret would never surface. As long as she loved Ayan with her whole heart, and she did, nothing from her past could threaten their future. Or so she believed. But secrets don't dissolve with silence. They wait, lingering in the quiet corners of the soul, growing heavier with time. And though Alina didn't know it yet, the truth she was hiding would one day rise and change everything. The burden of guilt. As time passes, her guilt starts to grow, and she feels she must confess to her partner. In the beginning, it was easy for Alina to push the past aside. Each day with Ayan felt like a fresh page, and for a while, that illusion was enough. But time has a way of loosening even the tightest seals. As their relationship deepened, as trust grew, and their lives became more entangled, the guilt began to seep through the cracks. It started subtly. A passing comment, a question Ayan asked with genuine curiosity. Have you ever made a mistake you regret? Alina would freeze, just for a second, before crafting an answer that sounded wise but vague. Haven't we all? She'd say, forcing a smile. But inside, her heart would twist. She noticed how often he praised her honesty, her emotional maturity. You're the most genuine person I know, he once whispered during a late-night walk, unaware of the silent weight pressing against her chest. Compliments like that, instead of comforting her, began to feel like tiny needles. Every word of trust he spoke built a pedestal she feared she didn't belong on. At night, while lying beside him, she would stare at the ceiling and replay the moments she had hidden from him, the things she had done, the mistakes she had made, the person she had once been. It wasn't that she hadn't changed. She had grown, healed, and forgiven herself to an extent. But Ayan didn't know the full journey, only the polished version. And the more he loved her, the more dishonest she felt. Guilt began to manifest in small ways. She'd pull away from conversations that felt too personal. Her laughter grew quieter. Sometimes, when Ayan reached for her hand, she hesitated, not out of doubt, but out of fear. If he knew everything, would he still hold on? One evening, as they sat in their favorite cafe, Ayan shared a story about a friend who had been betrayed by someone hiding a big secret. It's not the mistake that hurts, he said thoughtfully, stirring his coffee. It's the lie, the fact that someone thought you couldn't handle the truth. Alina nodded, but her throat felt tight, and for the rest of the evening, she barely spoke. The guilt became a storm within her, quiet but unrelenting. She loved Ayan, deeply. That love, ironically, was the very thing driving her toward confession. She wanted him to know her completely, not the curated version, not the half-truths. The real Alina, the girl who had once fallen, made painful choices, but had survived. And yet, the fear remained. What if the truth changed the way he looked at her? What if this one confession shattered the world they had built? Still, she knew she couldn't carry the weight much longer. The burden of guilt was suffocating the joy out of their love. It was no longer a matter of if she would tell him, but when, and whether their love was strong enough to survive the truth. The decision to reveal. After much internal struggle, she decides to tell him everything, hoping honesty will strengthen their love. Alina sat on the edge of her bed, her hands clenched into fists in her lap. The evening light spilled through the curtains, casting golden patterns across the floor, but she couldn't feel its warmth. Her heart pounded heavily, each beat echoing with the same question she had asked herself 100 times. Should I tell him? For weeks, the thought had haunted her. The weight of her secret pressed harder each day, robbing her of peace. She found herself more distant with Ayan, answering with smiles that didn't reach her eyes, withdrawing from his affection out of fear that she didn't deserve it. Ayan noticed, of course. He had asked her gently if everything was okay. She had nodded, lied, again. That hurt the most. She thought long and hard about what they shared. Their love wasn't surface level. It was rooted in real connection. Ayan had always encouraged her to be her truest self, no matter how imperfect. And hadn't he once said, "We can get through anything as long as we're honest"? That sentence played over in her mind like a quiet hymn of hope. Still, the fear never left her. What if her truth was the exception? What if this one part of her, this chapter she had never shared, was too much? Would he see her differently? Would he walk away? But no matter how terrifying the thought, she knew she couldn't keep living like this. The silence was becoming a wall between them, and Ayan, for all his patience, deserved the whole truth. Not just for his sake, but for hers too. One night, after hours of silent pacing and tearful journaling, Alina made her decision. She would tell him everything. She rehearsed it in her mind, how she would start, what words she might use. She even imagined his possible reactions: shock, sadness, maybe anger. But she forced herself to believe that their love was strong enough to hold the weight of this truth. After all, the foundation of anything real had to be honesty. She chose a quiet Sunday afternoon. They were sitting on a park bench under a canopy of trees, watching children play and birds flutter in the distance. Ayan was talking about something light-hearted, but Alina interrupted him gently. "Can we talk about something serious?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He looked at her instantly, concerned. "Of course," he said, his tone soft and open. "What's going on?" She took a deep breath, gathering every ounce of courage she had. Her hands trembled as she spoke. "There's something about my past I haven't told you. I didn't think it mattered before, but it does. And I can't keep it from you anymore." As she began to speak, her voice cracked under the weight of truth. But with each word, she felt a strange kind of release. It was terrifying, but also freeing. She had finally chosen honesty, no matter the cost. Now, all she could do was hope their love would survive what came next. The confession. She opens up about her past mistake or secret, pouring out her emotions and expecting forgiveness. Alina's hands trembled in her lap as she stared at the ground, unable to meet Ayan's eyes. The park around them remained quiet, the hum of distant laughter and birdsong continuing as if the world hadn't shifted inside her. But for Alina, this moment felt like the turning point between everything she had and everything she might lose. "I need to tell you something about my past," she began, her voice soft, nearly swallowed by the wind. "Something I've never told anyone completely, not even my family." Ayan's expression turned serious, his posture still and attentive. He didn't interrupt. He simply nodded, silently offering her the space she needed. Alina drew in a shaky breath. "Before I met you, I was in a relationship. It wasn't healthy. It started off like any other, sweet, exciting, but it changed. He changed. I was too young to understand what was happening, and by the time I realized how toxic it was, I was in too deep." She paused, her voice tightening with emotion. "He controlled me, emotionally manipulated me, made me feel worthless. I lost myself in that relationship. I didn't recognize who I had become. I made choices I'm not proud of. Some out of fear, some out of confusion. Things I never imagined I'd allow. And when I finally left, I promised myself I'd never speak of it again." She swallowed hard, tears forming in her eyes. "When I met you, Ayan, I saw a new beginning. You made me feel safe, seen. I didn't want to bring that darkness into our relationship. I didn't want you to see me differently or think I was broken. But lately, keeping it from you has started to feel like lying." Alina finally looked up at him, her eyes brimming with vulnerability. "I know you believe in honesty, and I should have told you sooner. I was just so afraid that you'd think less of me, that I'd lose the only good thing I've ever had. But you deserve to know the truth, all of it." She let the silence fall, unsure if she had said enough or too much. Her chest ached from the weight she had carried for so long, and now that it was spoken aloud, she felt exposed, like an open wound waiting to be touched. Ayan's face was unreadable. His eyes, wide and pensive, stayed locked on hers. The seconds stretched endlessly between them. "I'm not that person anymore," she whispered, "but she's still a part of me, and if you can't accept that, I'll understand." She didn't expect a miracle, but in that moment, she hoped, with every part of her, that the man she loved could see past the mistakes, past the pain, and still recognize the woman in front of him, scarred but honest, afraid but brave enough to tell the truth. His reaction. Her partner is shocked, hurt, and unable to process the truth immediately. The silence that followed Alina's confession was the longest she had ever endured. Ayan sat beside her, still and rigid, his eyes fixed ahead, unfocused. He didn't speak, didn't even blink at first. His breath came in shallow, uneven pulls, as if her words had knocked the wind out of him. Alina could feel the shift in the air, how heavy it suddenly became. It wasn't anger, not yet, but it was something dense and suffocating. Shock. "Ayan," she said cautiously, trying to reach for his hand. He pulled it away, not harshly, but enough for her to feel the sting. His jaw clenched, and finally, he turned toward her, his expression full of confusion and disbelief. I don't even know what to say," he muttered. Alina's heart sank. She had imagined many versions of this moment, tears, maybe even an argument, but nothing quite prepared her for the numb look on his face, the way he recoiled as if her truth had created distance where none existed before. "You've been carrying this all this time?" he asked quietly. "And you never told me?" "I was scared," she whispered, "scared of losing you." "But we talked about everything, Alina," he said, a bitter edge creeping into his tone. "We built this relationship on trust, and all this time you were hiding something so big." "I didn't think it mattered anymore. I thought I left it behind." "But it does matter," he snapped, then immediately looked away, ashamed at his tone. "I mean, it's not about what happened. It's about the fact that I didn't know, that you didn't tell me when you should have." Alina's eyes stung, but she nodded. "I know, and I'm sorry. I didn't want you to see me differently." "I don't know how to see you right now," he admitted, his voice low, strained. "This doesn't change everything, but it changes something, at least for me. I need time." His words hit her harder than she expected. She had hoped for understanding, maybe even forgiveness, but what she got was something colder, distance. Not rejection, but a pause, a shift, a space she hadn't prepared for. "I never wanted to hurt you," she said softly, tears falling freely now. "I know," he replied, his tone softening, but his expression still lost. "And I'm not angry. I'm just overwhelmed. You kept this part of yourself locked away, and now suddenly I'm supposed to understand it all? Process it all? I wish you had trusted me sooner." He stood up, brushing his palms on his jeans. "I think I need some time alone, to think, to feel whatever this is." Alina didn't stop him. She couldn't. As she watched him walk away slowly, disappearing down the tree-lined path, she felt the ache of her worst fear settling in. Her truth, though spoken with love, might have broken something they could never fully mend. The fallout. The confession causes distance, arguments, and emotional turmoil between them. The days that followed Alina's confession felt like walking through a fog, thick, cold, and uncertain. Ayan had gone quiet, not angry, not cruel, just absent in a way she had never experienced before. He still replied to her messages, but with short, clipped responses. He stopped calling her by the soft names that once made her feel safe. And when they met in person, there was an awkwardness that clung to every word, every silence. Alina tried to be patient, giving him the space he asked for, hoping time would soften the blow. But space turned into distance, and distance turned into walls. Conversations that once flowed effortlessly became strained. She could feel him pulling away, brick by brick, and she didn't know how to stop it. One evening, unable to take the silence any longer, she asked him directly, "Do you even want to try anymore?" Ayan looked at her, eyes tired and guarded. "I don't know," he said. "I'm still trying to make sense of what you told me." "It was my past," she said quietly. "It doesn't change the person I am now." "It doesn't change you," he replied, "but it changed how I feel. You should have trusted me with it earlier. I feel like I didn't really know you." The words cut deep. "I was ashamed," she said, "and I didn't want that shame to touch what we had." "But it did. It has?" he snapped, then ran a hand through his hair, frustrated with both her and himself. "We used to be so solid. I felt like we could face anything together. And now, I don't know where we stand." The argument started slowly, with defensive tones and hurt feelings, but soon they spiraled. Every conversation turned into a battle. Accusations, apologies, silence. They weren't shouting at each other, but their words were sharp, and the emotional toll was even sharper. Alina tried to explain herself again and again, hoping he would see that her silence wasn't betrayal, it was fear. But Ayan was stuck in his hurt, and she couldn't reach him. At night, she cried herself to sleep, replaying every moment where she could have told him earlier, wondering if that would have saved them. Meanwhile, Ayan distanced himself emotionally, afraid of saying the wrong thing, but also unsure if he could truly move forward with a version of love that now felt uncertain. The tension began to erode what once felt unbreakable. The trust that had once been their foundation now felt cracked and shaky. Both of them were in pain. Alina, from the weight of losing him, and Ayan, from the betrayal of finding out he hadn't known the full truth about the person he loved. They were still together, but not the same. Their love hadn't vanished, but it was bruised, fragile. Neither knew if it would heal or fade. The confession that was meant to bring them closer had instead opened a rift neither of them knew how to cross. The breakup. Despite her love and regret, the relationship ends, leaving her heartbroken. The end came quietly, like the final exhale of something alive but dying. Alina had hoped that time would heal the space between them, that the weight of their arguments would fade into understanding. She believed that Ayan's confusion and hurt would eventually turn into forgiveness. But as the days stretched into weeks, it became clear that the love they once shared wasn't enough to mend the growing divide. The cracks had deepened, and the walls between them were too high to climb. They sat together in the small cafe they'd visited countless times, the one where they'd shared their first date. The table between them felt wider now, the air colder. Ayan hadn't looked at her the way he used to. His eyes, once filled with warmth and affection, now appeared distant and guarded. He toyed with the edge of his coffee cup, unwilling to meet her gaze. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said," he began, his voice low, steady. "About your past, about how you kept it from me. I've tried to move past it, Alina. I've tried to understand it. But the more I think about it, the more it feels like we're in two different worlds now." Alina's heart squeezed painfully in her chest. She reached across the table, her hand trembling, but he didn't take it. She couldn't blame him. She had asked for forgiveness, but forgiveness was a thing of the past now. "I never meant to hurt you," she said, her voice breaking. "I just wanted to protect what we had. I thought if I kept that part of myself hidden, it wouldn't ruin the future we were building." "I know you didn't mean to hurt me," Ayan replied, his voice soft but firm. "But that doesn't change how I feel now. You kept something so big from me, and I can't pretend it doesn't matter. I don't know how to look at you the same way anymore. I can't just forget what you've hidden. It's not about the past, Alina. It's about the fact that we didn't face it together. And now, I'm not sure I can." The words hit her like a punch to the stomach. She wanted to argue, to convince him that what they had was worth fighting for. But deep down, she knew. She had known for a while. This wasn't just a bump in the road. This was the end. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. "I never wanted to lose you." Ayan didn't speak at first. He just looked at her, his expression not angry, not resentful, just resigned. "I know. I don't want to lose you either. But sometimes love isn't enough, not when trust is broken." He stood up then, slowly, like each movement weighed him down. "I think we need to let go. We need to move on." Alina sat there, stunned, unable to find her voice. The pain in her chest was a heavy, suffocating thing, one that pressed against her ribs, making it hard to breathe. She had loved him with everything she had, and now in this moment she was losing him. The past, the secret, the lie, none of it had prepared her for this kind of heartbreak. "I'll always love you," she said, her voice barely a whisper. Ayan gave her one last lingering glance, his eyes filled with sorrow, before he turned and walked away. Alina watched him leave, a part of her breaking with each step he took. She wanted to call out, to run after him, but she couldn't. He was already gone, and so was everything they had once shared. And for the first time, she understood what it truly meant to lose someone, not because of a fight, but because love alone couldn't heal the wounds of the past. The aftermath and realization. She reflects on love, truth, and the cost of secrets, realizing that some truths, once revealed, can never be taken back. In the weeks that followed, Alina felt as if she were living in a haze. The world moved around her, but she felt stuck in a place where time had stopped, a limbo between what had been and what was now lost. She found herself wandering the familiar streets they had once walked together, searching for pieces of herself that seemed to have vanished with him. Every corner, every cafe, every park bench felt like a reminder of everything that had been torn away. The house they had planned to move into together, the one with the garden he had promised to help her tend, stood in her mind like a ghost, a dream that had never come to fruition. She had poured her heart into that vision, but now it felt so far away, a memory wrapped in sadness. Even her favorite songs, once anthems of their love, now carried a sorrowful weight, each note a reminder of the laughter and conversations they would never share again. Alina spent most of her time reflecting. She thought about the confession, the one thing she had believed would bring them closer. In her mind, she had imagined it differently. She had hoped for understanding, for forgiveness, for the kind of unconditional love that would absorb the pain of the past. But instead, she had learned the hardest lesson of all. Some truths, once spoken, are like stones cast into the water, rippling out in ways you can never fully control. Sitting by the window one evening, she watched the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink, but even the beauty of the scene couldn't bring her peace. She had opened her heart to Ayan, shared with him something raw, something she had carried in silence for so long. And in doing so, she had hoped it would free her. Instead, it had shackled her to the past, a past that now stood between them like a wall neither of them could climb. She realized now that secrets, no matter how deeply buried, have a way of finding the light. And once they do, they carry consequences. It wasn't the secret itself that had caused the rift. It was the years of silence, the inability to face it together from the beginning. She had been so afraid of losing Ayan, so consumed by the shame of her past, that she had built walls around it. But those walls had only isolated her further. In the quiet of her room, Alina allowed herself to feel the weight of her mistakes. Not just the things she had done, but the choices she had made in keeping them hidden. She understood now that love, no matter how deep, could not survive without trust. And trust, once broken, was not easily repaired. But most of all, Alina understood something more profound. Honesty is not just about telling the truth. It's about choosing the right time to share it, and the courage to live with the consequences no matter how painful they might be. Some truths, once revealed, cannot be taken back. They linger, changing everything they touch. She would always love Ayan, but the reality of their relationship had changed. She could not undo the past, but perhaps in time she could forgive herself and learn how to carry the lessons forward. One thing was certain: the truth, however painful, had set her free in ways she never anticipated, even if it had cost her the one person she loved most.